So, there and back again. Does anyone know what that's a reference to? It's The Hobbit. Yeah. The alternate title for The Hobbit. Love it. And I kind of chose this as a title because, The Hobbit is a phenomenal, epic story. It's a story of Gandalf and 13 or 12 dwarves and the 13th Hobbit, right? It's full of gold, and dragons, and misty mountains, wizards, trolls, Gollum, whatever. Cool swords that light up when goblins are around, called Sting. Spiders, remember the spiders. Beautiful elvish cities. Very architecturally sound and gorgeous and ruled in that manner. And of course the bridge, you can't forget the bridge. It's not very important when you just read not just The Hobbit, but if anyone has seen Lord of the Rings, it's really important. That little side nugget in that story became very important. So a little bit more about who I am. This is my email address. This presentation I'll post this on Twitter and probably have Jeff send it out to the group.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep. You can hit me up on Twitter. I work with Object Partners. I'm a senior consultant at Object Partners. I've been focusing on working with startups in the Grails space. And I've been doing that for the last 4 years. And I really enjoy it. I really enjoy the newness of it, of a brand new opportunity. So, how many are familiar with Grails? We got a couple. All right, so just roughly. Is anyone working with Grails? All right, a couple. Scott, that's it. So Grails is a web framework that is built on top of Spring. It's basically Spring with some conventions, with a nice, light, groovy syntax on top. So Groovy is a dynamic language that runs in JVM. Compiles the bytecode. You get things like closures and mix-ins and cool abstract syntax tree annotations and all sorts of dynamic things that you would have native map and list syntax. Some things we wish we had in Java 7, right? So this is the application that we're going to be testing. It's a Grails application running in Tomcat. So it's a simple app. And this is the presenters view. Think of it as like Twitter for presenters. Anyone can go to this app and give a comment on a presentation, much like you do on Twitter. So here's an example of some comments. I originally worked on this application with a guy named Zan Thrash. Do any of you know him? How many Zans could a Zan Thrash thrash? Zan Thrash could thrash Zans. So then the idea is your IP address is unique and you can kind of store comments by IP address. So it's just a simple proof of concept app. You don't really have to know much about it. Just this is what it is. And I can show you the app real quick, running in Tomcat. So if you, this is the presenter view right now. And the presentation is called How to Shave a Yak in 43 Steps. This would be a user's view. So they'd log in and be able to tell them what they thought. So it's two-part. I don't know. Good enough. So I'm currently debugging that, so we're going to break that there. So that's just a brief, simple app. The app doesn't matter too much. It's just a standard Grails app, and we're going to start debugging in controllers and word on mappings. So I'm just working a little intro. This is with Tomcat 6. And this is what we're going to do today. We're going to track the request from the browser into the Tomcat headers, the sockets, the APR endpoints, through the Tomcat valves, into your application filter chain, Spring security, into application dispatch, through the Grails, into the Grails realm, right? Into dispatch and filters and controllers and services, persistence with Hibernate, into the view, so if you're familiar with Spring, the model and view, all that stuff, through the layout, decoration, and then back to the browser. So that's the path we're going to kind of take. Just a couple of requests we're going to look at. We're going to do some live debugging and kind of look at Grails from the inside. Look at Tomcat Grails from the inside. This is just to qualify, the sources of what we're using here. So highly recommend if you want to do this yourself, just go download this stuff and attach this to your debugger and download all the sources for this, and you'll be able to reproduce exactly this. I encourage you to do this on your own projects as well. Grab that source. We work in the open source world. Use it. Just some extra details about how to run Tomcat in a debug mode, right? And add your debug flags. And then where these code bases exist. Let's get started. Let's look at some of this communication. And if stuff is too small on the screen, I can zoom in a little bit. So just speak up if you want to take a look at something, right? So let's take a look at where we're at. I set a breakpoint, and we are here in this in a Grails controller. So are you familiar with the concept of a model view controller? So this is your controller. How many people have done Spring before? Most people. So you're pretty much familiar with controllers. So this is in the post action of the controller, and this would be the code that we would write. But we're going to look at how we got here. So if you look at this big old stack trace, if you've ever done Grails, or any Java development, we have these huge long stack traces of layers upon layers of stuff that you kind of have to get your head around when things blow up. So we're going to start way down here, even at the lowest level. The thread that's running within Tomcat. Sweet. Not much to look at. The next stop that we make here is the APR endpoint. Does anyone know what APR is inside of Tomcat? Okay, it's the Apache Portable Runtime. Does anyone know what Apache is? Apache, what is Apache? It's a web server, right? Written in C++. It's a server that it's used all over the place. LAMP stacks, where it's Linux, Apache. It's part of our bread and butter. That's part of one of the reasons why we have to move forward so much. So this is Apache Tomcat, right? So the Apache Portable Runtime is C++ code wrapped within, so it can be working with Java code, right? So instead of reinventing the wheel of how to handle HTTP requests, SSL, and some of that lower level stuff, it delegates to the Apache Portable Runtime, right? So you could that's where you could use Apache and Tomcat together. It's one here. So this code is super simple. Make this smaller. This is just, this endpoint is sitting here running, so that thread.run, that's that endpoint that's sitting there running, waiting for socket connection, basically. That's all it is. Handles, sockets being closed and polling and waiting for that and all that stuff. The next layer, not too much there, is it delegates to the HTTP 1.1 APR protocol, right? So not every request that comes into Tomcat is going to be an HTTP request, right? It could be anything in the service spec. Right? And others support multiple protocols. It could be an FTP. It could be a mail protocol. It could be something else. So Tomcat is delegating with the APR endpoint to an HTTP 1.1 API protocol. So now we get some HTTP specific things here. And this is the first part that we see is processing the socket. It creates the HTTP processor. And you see in here, there is a comment holder. So is anyone familiar with comment? Or HTTP long polling? So typically with an HTTP request, you make a request and get a response back as soon as possible. So sometimes that's a one-way, that's initiated by the client, right? The client always initiates that request response. So a little hack that we've created is to create a long polling request. I'll ask you for a resource, and then you can take it however long you want. Just leave it open until you have something else to send to me, right? So that's a way for a server side to push code or push events or push something or a resource back to the client, right? So even at this low level, we see some material code for supporting comment. So it's kind of like a server push instead of being stuck in this response request.
So it looks like they're doing both, right?
Yeah.
And
yep. Exactly.
It's like you can pick between the two, basically.
Right.
Huh.
So there's a socket state of long. Certain requests get identified as a long polling request later on, and set the socket state as this is a comment request. So then it would return from this process, and then it would be a socket state of long polling, and then it would add that request to the long polling queue, right? So typically, every request you make to the server opens a new thread. So if you had 10,000 people just kind of put out a long poll, you don't want to have 10,000 threads wide open, waiting forever. So they throw it into a thread pool and manage it separately.